A total of 10 picks, starting off with linebacker Jahad Campbell at 31st overall, which could end up being a steal. I would go ahead and go as far as to say it is a steal. They took safety Andrew Makuba with the final pick in the second round, and then 8 of Philly's 10 picks in the draft were the fourth round or later, including 3 offensive linemen and quarterback Kyle McCord in the sixth. And it wouldn't be draft day without the Eagles taking a Georgia defender. They took linebacker Smile Munden Jr. in the fifth. So really just, again, a nice draft by Howie Roseman. Seems like he just always does that. Mina, what did you think of this particular draft from Roseman?
You know, I think the Eagles, because they've drafted so well, because they've approached free agency so well, they're in a position of strength when they get to the draft from a roster standpoint, and then they can afford to take the best player available instead of acting out of need. And that's exactly what they did at the end of the first round, taking Jahad Campbell. I love this destination for him. You guys know about my affinity for the player for a couple of reasons. The blueprint in my mind for who Jahad Campbell can be in this defense and the path, it's on this team. It's Zach Bond. He's a guy who you guys remember in New Orleans started out on the edge, still occasionally played on the edge in Philadelphia, but was tremendous in coverage for them last year. And he played for a guy in Vic Fangio who's really, has an unbelievable track record now when it comes to linebackers, going back to San Francisco, Chicago, now Philly. It's a dream spot for him. So, I know people are tired of us praising Howie Roseman year after year and saying he did it again, but frankly, the track record speaks for itself at this point.
I love what you're saying about Jahad Campbell. I got a chance to see him 2 years ago, Alabama taking on Ole Miss, and watched him just pop Jackson Dart's helmet off. And just seeing the energy in which he ran through the tunnel, knowing this is a hometown kid who's going back to play for the Philadelphia Eagles, hearing his parents talk and give him their opinion of him being drafted, seeing the tears come down for his eyes. I have to warn him, the tickets are not free in the NFL. Get mom and dad to say no when those requests start to come in. But it's a beautiful thing for the Philadelphia Eagles when you can draft value, but it also fills a ton of needs on your roster with guys leaving, whether it's safety, whether it was defensive tackle. They were able to get some of those things.
Yeah, worth noting he was available because he had labrum surgery after the combine, so the Eagles may have to be patient, but they can afford to be patient. And people, I think everybody always says it's great to draft for value and not draft for need. The thing that prevents teams from doing that is being too caught up on the short-term ramifications of the draft. If you want to draft for value every single year, the reality is you got to start early and you got to ride the wave early in that process, because what it might do is it might end up stockpiling you positions where you don't necessarily have some strength, but you have some clear deficiencies elsewhere. Over the course of an extended period of time, drafting for value will result in a lot of success. It's a very difficult exercise to nail. It's a lot more difficult when you're trying to jam something in because of the need that you have. So Philadelphia, Baltimore, some of the teams that around this time of the year we're always talking about with really solid drafts. The reason why? They're always drafting for value because they do such a good job of thinking ahead.
So it's funny because with this Philadelphia Eagles team, it's always interesting to draft when you win the Super Bowl, because when you're looking at the Ravens, the Lions, the Chiefs, the Rams, the Commanders, the whole thing is what went wrong? What went wrong? Why couldn't we win? How did we lose to the Eagles? How did we lose in the Super Bowl? How did we lose in the conference championship game? Whatever. And a bunch of those teams, obviously, they lost to the Eagles because the Eagles beat everyone in the playoffs and they won the Super Bowl. I'm not sure if you know that. And so when that happens, when you're drafting, it's not even just that you're drafting from a position, drafting for value. You're drafting from a position of power and just not even need, but not even the feeling of we need to make a big move. People, I think what people also should really, really, really appreciate about Howie Roseman is when you have the levels of success that Howie has had, right? And he hears all the praise that he's getting, and everyone's talking about how amazing he is, and he's a deal maker, and how he wins again, and et cetera, et cetera. It's so easy for you to ride that wave and feel like you got to keep making moves. Right? That Howie, they won the Super Bowl, and he should have went all in and traded up to the top 10 pick this year. And, he could have done this and mortgaged the future. And they're really going all in to try to win these next couple of years. And he didn't do any of that. He stayed completely grounded and still just attacked the draft, whether he was, back-to-back Super Bowl champion or still trying to get over the hump. And I love that. And that shows you someone who is at the top of their game and understands not only the short-term play, but also the long-term play. He actually deeply understands what it takes to build a Super Bowl winning roster multiple times. So he knows what needs to be done. He knows the formula. He knows the process. And he even knows that said formula changes and evolves. It changes and evolves, right? One day, the Philadelphia Eagles O-line won't be as tough as it is right now, right? It can't be a brick wall forever. One day, it's going to be a little different. They're going to change and evolve. But the one thing that has not changed and evolved, and they double, triple, quadruple down, is the physicality and the monster aspect of this defense. This defense is all about inflicting pain. And again, look no further than watching Cooper DeJean get after Derrick Henry. Like, that is just the perfect example. That, or when Jalen Carter just crushes Patrick Mahomes like he's, like it's a cartoon, like it's like Tom and Jerry. I mean, just madness, right? It's just that physicality. They somehow play bully ball, but they're still so fast and so explosive and can do the more nuanced aspects. Like they're able to essentially just check every single box off. And it's remarkable. And so to bring in a new fold of these younger guys, to me, is so important. Because it really keeps them in the fold, and it becomes a passing of the torch of this culture, this identity, and it allows Fangio to work with guys from the ground up. And so I'm a huge fan of this draft. I'm a huge fan. If we look at the Eagles rating, PFF gave them one of the highest ones out there. Oozes with athleticism, Jahad Campbell. I mean, obviously, you're excited to see that pick. It really, really does feel like the star, feel like the steal of the draft. Right now, you got a replacement for C.J. Gardner-Johnson. Ideally, your replacement for C.J. Gardner-Johnson. So you're creating this now young core, right? Of Mitchell, of Cooper DeJean, of Campbell, like you're Jalen Carter. And again, you have this perfect balance between, because you needed a veteran like a C.J. Gardner-Johnson. You needed a veteran like Darius Slay. But once you win, once you instill this culture, once you instill this identity, once you get these young guys to really look up at Fangio and understand that is him, so now there's no question, when you bring in a Campbell, when you bring in any of these other guys, like it's understood what is done here. It's understood, when you listen to Fangio, you win. The defense is great. When Cooper DeJean talks, you listen. Right? When Zach Bond talks, you listen. Like, no one has to try to guess and figure things out. It is arguably the biggest benefit you have when you win. And when you win with some younger guys, the importance of bringing in now new younger guys and allowing the younger guys who are now a little bit older, they're still young, to be able to now form their own unit. Because otherwise, you do then fall off. If you're too reliant on just the Bonds and the Darius Slays and the C.J. Gardner-Johnsons, that's kind of how you then fall off a cliff. That's kind of how you get the Legion of Boom, just to fall off. That's what happens. You got to really be smart until who you bring back into this fold. And again, it's always this balance between youth and veterans. But when you win, sometimes you could say, this defense is so great, let's bring in a couple other awesome big name veterans. And you're like, yeah, that could be successful, but that now keeps your window narrow, right? That's why, again, you move on from a C.J. Gardner-Johnson and a Darius Slay. Because you say, we got to bring in a couple other young guys because we got to now make this our main core. So in 2-3 years from now, these guys are seasoned veterans. And their culture and their identity is steeped into this franchise. And they understand Fangio, that's our coach. That's our guy. There's just no question about it. There's no other new personality, someone else who's bringing their own culture from, they say, like another big free agent of some sort that could then kind of cause problems. I don't mean like problems in the locker room, but just problems in terms of like chemistry, identity, what you're expecting. Like, because the Eagles could have made a play and got, oh man, who's the guy from the Dolphins right now? Like a Jalen Ramsey from the Miami Dolphins. Things of that nature. And teams do that. And sometimes that's the right move. But the Eagles always master building short-term and building long-term. And it's exactly why they're able to win in 2017, 5 years later with a whole new team, go to the Super Bowl in 22, win a couple years after that, and then this feeling of like, you have a real window here. You somehow have a pretty young offense, a pretty young defense, balanced out with some true seasoned veterans, and any of the other guys that are about to move on, whether it was a Kelsey, whether it was Brandon Graham, etc. You have their wisdom, you have their culture, you have their experience. Replacement already there, already in the fold. And if you remember, you had people like Nick Wright screaming from the high heavens, Kelsey leaving this team is going to be devastating. You just lost a leader. You just lost one of the best centers to ever do it. Oh my gosh, this is huge loss. This is a huge loss. And I remember kept saying, yeah, it's a big loss, but the Eagles prepared for this. They understood this. Kelsey helped them prepare for this. The benefit of creating an awesome culture, because not all players want to do that. And they didn't skip a beat. They didn't skip a beat. The Eagles do that at such a high level. And they do it with so many different positions in so many different situations. And they've done it for at this point, like decades. Seriously, they've done it with their quarterbacks. They've done it with their running backs, their O-line, their defensive players. I mean, they somehow always find that way. And it's impressive. And they understand the balance between having these young guys interact with the older veterans, and understanding the importance of, when you bring in these new guys, you need to have kind of this perfect balance of old and old guys to really let everyone know. Because it is, when you first come into a team, you really don't know what it is. You really don't. And yeah, you have the coaches, but you're really also looking to the other players to see how they react. When you're a rookie, first year, second year, you're really kind of just like looking around and be like, do we laugh now? Do we look up? Are we allowed to put our hoods up? Is it okay if we're kind of looking down and scribbling on the paper when coach is talking? Like, seriously, you're looking around to see what is the precedent that's set. And it just gets turbocharged when you win a Super Bowl. Because again, now you got these young guys that know exactly. And you now put like a Cooper DeJean, even though he's only going to be in his second year, to like actually be a leader of this team. And so it's just you get to now fast forward this process and turbocharge it, because now you get to have the youth, but you don't have to pay the consequence of them not having like actual high level Super Bowl experience. So I assume this draft is all in, relatively speaking, on defense, and the year after will be kind of all in on offense, because now it'll be the same thing. Devontae's a little bit older, AJ's a little bit older. Like, you kind of start to get up there. The O-line, some of the key spots are getting a little bit older. So this defense was so young, but balanced so heavily with the true veterans. And the veterans are, they're leaving just by sheer age more than anything. And yeah, I just think it was kind of like this perfect cyclical aspect for the Philadelphia Eagles. And when you can find yourself getting another huge steal in this draft, and I kind of think 2 steals with Andrew and Jihad, I just think, like, again, you're creating this core of awesome defensive players that, quite frankly, if all goes to plan, this main core unit of 4 or 5 guys, they should be devastating for a minimum of, like, considering their age, 5. I mean, like, they should be in the heart of their devastating prime for like 5 years. Outside of them getting unfortunate bad injuries, which is always on the table, like, this core of this youth that's balanced with somehow Super Bowl winning experience should be devastating. Should be devastating. If anything, the concern starts to become the offense at that point, because you're like, all right, they're getting a little bit older. Again, AJ, Devontae, Saquon. You're like, how long can that last for? But as we saw with the Chiefs, it's like when you have a great, devastating defense, makes you way, way, way more resilient, and you can ride the waves of any of the issues of an offense. Especially when you're well coached, especially when you have a quarterback who knows how to win games and play within the flow of a game. And again, it's not like I'm saying that I think that the offense is going to fall off a cliff here. It's just, I just think it's considering what you have with Fangio and what this defense was able to do. The changing of the guard really needed to happen for this defense because of, again, losing some key pieces like CJ Gardner-Johnson. Even having Bond, creep up there in age technically relative to someone who's like 22, 21 years old. Just, again, bringing in a Jahad Campbell, getting your replacements in order just goes a long, long way. And it's hard to see this team not truly compete and not just lip service. Oh yeah, they're a top team, they're the Eagles, but like truly compete. I think at this point, if the Eagles don't win, and it's always hard, and so I don't really want to say this statement, but whatever. It would be a legitimate, I would see it as an actual failure if the Eagles don't win at least one Super Bowl in the next 3 years. Going back to back doesn't mean anything to me. I don't care about any of that type of stuff. I know it's fun, it's exciting, the fans like it. I said this the same thing with the Chiefs. I was like, winning 3 in a row doesn't matter. If you told me that you lose this next year, but you win another 2 over the next 5-6 years, it's the same thing to me than if you win 3 in a row. Doesn't matter to me. So I look at the Eagles on a more extended window of time, and I'm like, considering the pieces that you have, considering who you've drafted, considering who you have in their true athletic, physical prime, both offensively and defensively, the coaching staff that you have, Fangio's still there. He's not retired yet. It's like a Super Bowl within the next year, because again, you can't just expect a team just to go back to back or back to back to back, right? So I'm looking at it on this 3-year window, and I'm expecting them to at least win one other Super Bowl, and that's all you could really ask for, honestly, right? That's at the end of the day, it's like if you're talking about winning 2 Super Bowls in like a 5-year window and going to 3 Super Bowls in what, I guess also like a 6-7 year window, it's just like, it's pretty amazing. I mean, that's as good as it gets if you're not Tom Brady and the New England Patriots. So that's as good as it gets. So that's what I'm looking for, and that's what it feels like that the Eagles are actually understanding and preparing for, which is why I felt that this draft was such a smart, grounded draft, and not like Harry Roseman being like, I gotta make a splash, I gotta do something big. We really need, whoever, and we're just gonna get after it and go. Come on, let's go. And they didn't do that. And you see plenty of teams constantly trying to do that, quite frankly. And the Eagles didn't do it. They didn't fall prey to that. So it's good to see. But those are just my thoughts. I'd absolutely love to hear yours. What do you guys all think about the Philadelphia Eagles and their draft? I guess, NFL Live was saying that people are getting sick to hearing about how great Harry Roseman is, but I don't think Eagles fans are. But let me know in the comments below. I read every single comment, so whether you agree with me or disagree with me, either way, let's get in some discussions, let's get in some fights, but ultimately, let's just have some fun. And please do consider subscribing. We are building an amazing community here, and I absolutely love to see you part of it. I want to build something that we all genuinely feel connected to, something that we're really excited to be part of. I think we're on our way to doing it. And please don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, as it really does help the visibility and the algorithm. Thank you so much. See you next time.